Welcome to the morning meeting with Sarah and Jess,
where the tea is hot, the wine is chilled, and no topic is off limits. Pull up a chair and join us. There is room for all of you here.
We won't limit seating, we'll just build a bigger table. Let's begin today's meeting. Hello, morning meeting members, listeners, and friends. We are so glad you are here and hope wherever you are listening from today, you are doing well. We have a special episode for you, and you may notice it is already a little different from our usual style. Jessica and I decided there was no need for an opening chat from us because we want to give the space and time to our guests today. So in today's episode, we sit back and listen to an incredible story unfold. We are so grateful that we have the chance to share this beautiful story with you and feel it is a perfect way to celebrate Pride Month. Sit back and listen to this story of fate, love, strength, and determination. Today's episode will be part 1 of a 2-part story, so stay tuned next week for the following episode. On today's episode, we sit down with Dr. Heather and Hayley Rudderham. Heather was born and raised in Cape Breton, and Hayley, who grew up in Philadelphia, met each other 13 years ago while working at a summer camp, actually owned by Hayley's parents in Pennsylvania. Married in 2011, they always knew they wanted children, but didn't start actively researching the IVF process until 2016. In the years between, Heather received her doctorate in clinical psychology from the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology in Palo Alto, California. Hayley is a trained nurse and has a passion for weddings and all things fashion. They moved back to Cape Breton to put down roots and are currently working for mental health services in Eskasoni First Nation. Through their extensive research, Heather and Hayley decided reciprocal IVF was the right choice for them. This dream became a reality with the love and support of friends, family, and their incredible medical team. Heather and Hayley feel lucky and grateful for their experience and are happy to share their journey with us today. However, they do so while also acknowledging, honoring, and recognizing how difficult of a process this is for those who go through it. Everyone's journey is unique, and the outcomes can be so varied. While they have both tried not to take a moment of this journey for granted, they have been especially over the moon since the birth of their son Gray over 6 months ago, the perfect addition to their squad. As they've stepped into their new roles as parents, they have been both enjoying motherhood, love to learn new things, and look forward to every opportunity they have to hang out with their families. In these episodes, Heather and Hayley take us through their journey with reciprocal IVF, from the early stages of research to picking a donor to the personal decisions and painful procedures, the pregnancy, delivery, and birth of their son, to adjusting to parenthood and deciding what's next and when. They cover the ins and outs, costs associated, the risks and rewards, and what it was like navigating systems built with heteronormative language as a same-sex couple. As two funny, down-to-earth, open and warm people, they have us laughing and crying along with them as they share their journey with us. It is such a pleasure to welcome these two incredible women, moms, advocates, and friends around our table for today's
cheers, ladies.
Have a sip of this so far.
We're so glad you're here. Cheers.
So
Cheers.
happy.
Cheers.
I'm outnumbered here. You girls are all drinking red, and I'm the only.
You got to get on the good stuff, Jess.
I know. I want
You'll
to. I
mature
want to
someday.
love red, but I don't know if red loves me.
You gotta be you.
It will. Thank you for being here, Heather and Hayley. We're so excited to chat with you and hear about your story and your journey through the process of reciprocal IVF. There's so much Jessica and I want to know. I know there's so much our listeners will want to know, and we are just so thankful for your time and to have you with us. So welcome to the morning meeting.
Thank you. We're excited.
Yay.
Yes.
I feel so lucky to have a front row seat to this conversation. Let me tell you.
I know.
Everyone should be jealous because so far it's been so much fun.
I know. We've been laughing so much. We're like,
Yeah.
wait, save it for the podcast. We're having too much chit chat before this starts. Okay, Heather and Hayley, the floor is yours. Tell us about yourself. Tell us, the listeners, about who you are, how you met, and the journey that you've been on in the last little while.
You want to
Who
start?
is Heather and Hayley?
Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, I can start. I'm Heather. And so Hayley and I met in 2008 at her parents own a summer camp in the Pocono Mountains, right in Pennsylvania and New York kind of border area. And it's one of those camps where like there's sports and there's waterfront and music program. And it's like it's an amazing place. It's called Independent Lake Camp. And my sister used to go every year. So one summer I went to work as a head counselor there, and that's where I met Hayley.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
this
hadn't
is true.
been for years, and then I went back to work as an office manager, and she was actually working with my best friend at the time, and I saw her gardening with my mom. And was like, who is that? And then kind of the rest was history.
Yeah.
You've been together ever since.
Yes, absolutely. We kind of tried to do, after camp was over, that was really hard because you're kind of in this like little bubble for 3 months or
Right.
2.5
Right.
months,
Right.
and then you have to go back to the real world. We only lasted about 6 months doing the long distance thing, and then Hayley moved. And
We were traditional lesbians and took my U-Haul across the border.
right across the border. Not on the second date, but pretty close. Yeah.
I was just gonna say that. So Heather, you're from Cape Breton and Hayley.
From Philadelphia.
Okay.
So yeah.
So she transferred to CBU. She was at Hunter College in New York to finish her degree, and we lived in Halifax for a couple of years, and then we moved back to Cape Breton.
Yeah.
And then we got married in 2011.
And Sarah was our photographer.
That's
Yes.
right. I
Oh my
actually-
God.
Not
to
that I
mention
forgot, but that's something I didn't even
bestie.
tell Jessica. That's right. was
I like
your
look
wedding
at those pictures
photographer.
all
all the time. Yeah.
I hope I did it justice. That was one
You
of the
did
most
so
beautiful
good. We
days
had-
that I've
It was the
ever
best.
witnessed. It was so fun.
It was the
It-
best.
So gorgeous. The whole
Yeah.
remember the whales? There was whales.
We
There
paid
was-
for that.
No.
Yes, that's what I said. I'm like, I hired
In
these
the
whales.
background. Yeah.
We were in Inverness or
Shetty Camp,
Camp,
Island
Shetty
Sunset
Camp.
Resort. Yeah.
yes. But we went over to Chimney Corner-ish area to take the photos, and we were on that cliff by the beach. Beautiful sunset photos with I'll cry just thinking about it because it was so gorgeous. Like, what
It
are the
was so
chances? It was
fun.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Jessica, there was a pod of whales.
It's
Oh
true.
my gosh.
Like
Yeah.
sun setting in the background.
Sun setting in the
Like-
ocean on a cliff in their beautiful wedding gowns, pod of whales come. I'm like, guys,
Imagine that.
Yeah, it was
magical.
It was magical. It was
Wow.
amazing.
I'll have to see those photos. Can we share
Yes.
those?
We'll share them.
Definitely.
Definitely.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
think
we're
I
coming
might
up
have a
on-
photo of the whales, so we'll try and dig that up.
Yeah. And then we did a little tip for anyone doing weddings. We did a whale watching tour the day after the wedding, and rented like 2 big boats so everyone could go whale watching. But everyone was so
How many
deathly
people showed up?
hungover that nobody could go on the boats. So it was like us, my parents, and like
All the
14
kids.
kids.
How romantic.
My goodness.
Hilarious. So you got married in 2011.
11.
And
And then we got
10
in the
years
car
in
the day
September.
after.
10 years.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Yeah. And then we got in the car like 3 days later and drove to California to go to school for my PhD.
That's
We
right.
packed
Wow.
all the stuff up like jigsaw puzzle style.
Nowhere to live, just drove.
Wow.
And then found a place when we got there.
And then we had to stop in Utah to stay the night. And I was responsible for the like money bag with all of our important documents
Passports.
and
Right.
passports.
Yeah.
And we were backing out of the parking lot. And we drove for almost 2 hours with no cell phones because we didn't switch our phones over from Canada to America. I left all of our money and
Oh
all
my
of the passports
gosh.
in the driveway
ground.
on the ground.
But the lovely
No.
people of Utah put it at the front desk and didn't
Yeah.
take any.
Oh my,
We called them and went back and picked it
Yeah,
up,
it
and
worked out.
it all worked out.
crazy. And you lived in California for a few years, right?
5 years.
5
yeah.
years. Yeah.
Wow.
And that flew by. She got her PhD. I got my nursing degree.
We lived in 200 square feet apartment for like 1,600 American a month. It
Oh
was
my
we
god.
had to get the hell out in 2016.
My gosh.
So, yeah. So when I
You can
graduated,
survive
we
that
moved
though. I
back.
mean, what a relationship test.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Overseas. Yeah, definitely.
You're golden.
Yeah.
So after California, you moved
To Sydney.
back home.
back home. Luckily, Heather's parents live here because that was a huge help to not have to like pay for rent for a minute. And I went through the permanent residency process. So I was allowed to work for 2 years, which was
it was a nightmare.
Yeah, it was nuts.
Yeah. But then we got it. And at that time in 2016, I got my job at Escazoni as the psychologist there. So,
right.
Yeah.
And then
2 years later,
got her working visa.
I got my working visa and I started working as a research assistant for the Access Open Minds project out of Montreal in Escazoni. And so, yeah, that's what I've been doing and kind of evolving that position.
It's incredible. And imagine you didn't go to summer camp, Heather.
I know.
Where would
Crazy.
we all be?
Even more crazier part that I was in Australia for my junior year of high school, and Heather was in Australia at the same time, and we crossed paths and went to she worked at the IMAX theater, and I went to the IMAX theater to like see. So we definitely probably crossed paths.
Wow. In the same place, you think?
Like,
I love how she just dropped that just to say that she was a junior in high school when I was traveling after I graduated university. It's a little dig like that. There's a 5-year age gap.
Just so we know. Which
is not hardly anything now that we're older. But we met when she was 20.
Mm-hmm. And Heather used to have to sign me into the bars.
You don't have to tell people that in America.
Oh my gosh, you weren't legal yet.
Yeah. So we don't have to tell people that.
She used to like.
So in 2018, we bought a house in Westmount, and that was kind of, I don't know why, but for some reason that was like when I felt comfortable to do the baby thing.
Right.
Like I hate that it had to come in that order in my mind because it's kind of maybe a societal pressure thing and stuff.
You were like conditioned to think
for
that
me, that felt like, okay, now we're ready to give it a shot.
Right.
Yeah.
And we talked about that as like a stabilizing thing. Like once we get a house, then we can like have the babies and stuff like that.
Right.
So
I was just gonna say that it in part probably a little bit of social conditioning as we've all been, but also probably gives you like a sense of security and you know
exactly.
You understand that you can provide in certain ways now, and you know that whole thing might have it makes sense that you
it does, and that was kind of what it was. So then we started like doing the research. You guys are gonna laugh so hard. For us, well, I should say this like humbly, because a lot of people maybe like this part of the process and don't think it's crazy, but the picking of the sperm for me was like a little crazy. Like it was just like Hayley got us a subscription to.
Well, there was many subscriptions and several different companies, but after so I did all my rogue research before Heather was ready to do her research.
Right. So when Heather was ready,
you already had it ready to go.
She was behind the scenes doing it.
She was very familiar. Yeah.
She did the same thing with the house. I'm like, we need to take a break from house, honey. I can't do it right now. And she was
then
secretly still doing it.
Valerie, this one came up. Can we go see it?
Like everything happened very fast, but she knows me well. She's like, I'll just keep it on the low until she processes this.
Yeah.
Hayley's a little faster and efficient at those things than I am. So she had a bunch of subscriptions for sperm.
And then we got recommendations from the clinic in Halifax, the Atlantic Assisted Reproductive Therapies
is what it's
clinic.
Called.
Is what it's called.
Just like the main one that I don't know anyone else who's used anything other than that.
Right. Okay, I'm gonna pause us here. I know, like this, we're like, we have to make sure they walk us through the sperm donor thing. We can't let them forget that because like we are so fascinated at this whole process. But I want to back it up for our listeners. Jessica and I know a little bit about the process that you've gone through, but you knew you wanted kids. You decided you wanted to have kids. I think, is it fair to say that both of you imagined having kids someday separately and together? Like, did you know that this was something you wanted?
For me it was 100%.
Right. And when you decided together, you had the host, you were like, okay, let's do this. What process did you know you wanted to follow?
What's the first step?
Like the reciprocal IVF. Can you tell us what that is and break that down for us?
Well, we didn't start there.
Okay.
We didn't start there. Well, luckily, so first we just wanted to like honor the process and say like, this doesn't go easy for everyone.
Right.
And that like we were very lucky in how everything kind of panned out. And like this is a very intense, emotionally, physically financial process that once you kind of dive into it, it's a lot.
It's all consuming.
Right.
It's like,
And we were blessed that it worked out fairly quickly for us, but we also have friends who have gone through
a lot.
so much heartache and pain,
Right.
and it's not. So I guess what we want to make sure was we're humbly presenting the fact that we are so grateful that it did go the way it did, and
Absolutely.
it
Of
easily
course.
might not have, you know.
Right.
So
Right.
And like the things that we're gonna report, like we're very lucky in like the numbers that we got and like all of that stuff. Like I don't want it to seem like we're bragging or any of those things, because
Right.
it's a very individual process. It's a very stressful process, and like the way it worked out for us, we were very lucky.
Yeah, I think
like
it's
we always-
clear you're just sharing your journey with us and telling
Yeah.
us your experience, knowing that it's not everybody's, right? Everyone has a very
Yes.
unique experience through this process.
Yeah, and we just
So-
kind of want to walk the line of honoring that and celebrating the fact that it did go well for us.
Yeah.
And that
Right,
we did
right.
have this
Definitely.
particular journey.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Because that's hopeful, right?
Yeah,
For people to know
absolutely.
both sides, like all possibilities of outcomes.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, exactly.
So I apologize because I thought, so when you start this process, reciprocal IVF wasn't where you started.
No.
Oh,
So what,
okay.
why?
Okay.
What does that look like? What does that mean?
So ideally, I wanted to go first in the process. So like, okay, after I did a whole bunch of different research, and then we got the recommendation from the art clinic to utilize certain different sperm banks that they've worked with. I then got a subscription to the one that was like the most reputable, got like our choices down to like
Which we'll talk more about.
a whole bunch of
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
parameters went into that.
Right.
And then from there,
Okay, so basically you got two options. The thing about fertility clinics is a lot of same-sex people are utilizing the services now, and like we don't necessarily go in with fertility issues.
Right.
We go like most
Right.
people who access IVF.
we're just missing a
Right.
part of
we're
the
just
equation.
yes,
Right.
exactly. So the first thing is so what we did was first things first, you have to order the sperm. So we'll talk about how we picked that out. But there's a couple options. One is insemination. So
Okay.
insemination is essentially the joke about the turkey baster. They
Right.
do it
Right.
there, but they basically inseminate the sperm and it goes through all its normal channels, got to swim up, get through the egg, the whole thing.
Mhm.
That's lots of people try it.
Also known as IUI in
Yes.
the business. So
Okay.
intrauterine insemination.
Right.
Okay.
And so it's my understanding that percentage is about 8 to 10% success.
Rate.
So it's
Wow, that's
very
really low.
Wow.
And actually, even naturally, women conceiving every month, it's not a high percentage.
Right.
so
Right.
You'll get pregnant.
Right, that makes
So
sense. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I wonder what that percentage is.
I don't
Oh,
want to
it's
say because I'm
low,
not
but-
100%.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
some reason, I think it's somewhere in the, like 20 or lower
Wow.
a little bit. But and but that costs $1,500 plus the cost of sperm.
Right.
So like
So the cost of sperm is $3,000 for three vials of sperm.
Wow.
So in and of itself,
15 to 20% of women at the age of 35 have a chance of getting pregnant every given month.
right. So then you take in factors that it's not like the things that the sperm has to go through and all of that stuff.
Right.
So, and IVF hovers in around 50%,
Okay.
but then you're looking at 10,000 plus.
Right.
Wow.
Which is,
Plus
and it is
all the
plus,
me-
it is plus,
right,
plus,
yeah,
plus.
yeah. Yeah.
So like, it's going to be in retrospect whether you did the right thing or not. I do know a couple couples who got pregnant from IUI,
Okay.
and then if that works out, you're like, yes, it just didn't spend $15,000.
Right.
So that's awesome.
Right.
So we did try that twice with Hayley, and she's younger than me by 5 years.
Mhm.
And part of it was I wasn't working. I
Right.
couldn't do
Right.
anything. I
Exactly.
had to wait for my MSI to even come in. So like I was like all gung ho, like I'm not doing anything. Let's get pregnant.
Right.
And then-
Yeah.
Then we
Here
found
I
out like
am.
one round of blood work is $800.
$800
at
at the hospital.
because she's not Canadian.
Oh,
Wow.
my God.
No, we
So
better
I was like,
wait.
okay, I'm gonna wait
Yeah.
on the
Just kidding.
blood work
Right.
until my MSI comes in.
And
Right.
So-
I think we chose you because you were more at the time wanting to do it, and
I was having a like real like urge, like this is something that I can contribute to our relationship.
Right. Yeah.
Like Heather just did this massive feat of getting her PhD.
Yeah.
And like this is something that I can do, kind of thing.
Do you think you felt that, Hayley, from like a nature perspective? Like you felt like you were ready? Like something in you was like, I want to do this? Or was it more of your mind being like, I want to do this because of these external factors?
I think it was a little bit of both,
Yeah.
actually. Like, I think there was definitely the pull of like, we're getting older, like
Right.
that kind of thing. And then also like, I didn't have much on my agenda at the time. So like preparing my body, like going to the gym every day and doing
Right.
swim aerobics with Debbie at 6 o'clock in the morning. Like
Deb's the best.
the Deb.
Shout out
So
to the Debs.
She's the best.
She
yeah.
really is.
So like, I think it was a combination of kind of all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was at the time really okay with if it was never going to be me that carried.
Right. Okay.
Because at the time I was 5 years older, and I've always wanted kids, but I've never felt desperate to be pregnant, if that
Right.
makes sense. Like,
Yeah,
you know what I
definitely.
mean? So I actually I thought I would hate it, if I'm being truthful. I
Yeah.
actually loved it. It was,
Wow.
I had a great pregnancy, but I thought I was going to hate it.
Right.
And so I was like, well, if I can have the kid and not have to do that.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Yeah, it's a win-win. Yeah, yeah.
So spoiler alert, Heather
yeah.
carried.
Yes.
Yes. Oh yeah. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And so then we got all the prep done.
So we
which
got
was-
all the prep
You don't do all
done.
the injections and stuff. You just track your cycle.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was in France with my sisters, drinking wine, dipping my pee, and like,
The little ovulation kits.
ovulation kits, doing my stuff, like trying to like get it to work or whatever. And then we tried twice, and
We tried twice.
and both times neither one took.
Right.
So like that was devastating. And then I thought there was like something wrong with me.
Right.
And then in actuality, after like getting back to
Well-
the clinic and having like an assessment
with
them.
They got Hayley to Dr. McMullen here.
Shout out to Dr. McMullen. We
She
love you.
is
She's
the
amazing.
best.
The best. She
Anyway, they got me to Dr. McMullen and she did a HSG and both my fallopian tubes were blocked and
So
there
it
was
was
never
never
going
gonna
to
work.
happen.
it was never gonna work. And there
Okay.
goes like $4,000.
Oh,
Why
down the
don't they
drain.
check that?
And well, this
Well,
is the
wait
thing.
a
They
tick.
did for me because we didn't know at first when we went DART who would carry. So
Okay.
they checked for me because I was over 35, but assumed because Hayley was under 35 at the time they did.
That there was no
check.
issue, right?
But
And
what?
but they've since changed their policy.
So after
Oh.
a couple of hard conversations with them, which they navigated fabulously, we did good. I did okay.
Yeah.
Just okay. And,
well, yes,
um,
we managed it. I ended up
they-
being the one that was only allowed to communicate with the finance department.
Oh my God.
so
I called
But-
I was like, you'll be dealing with me from now on. So let's
Yeah.
move
They were like,
forward.
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
but they're very lovely.
Yeah.
But now it's part of the process, like heterosexual, same sex, anything.
Yeah.
Everyone goes through the same checklist.
It's MSI covered. There's no point not to do it.
That
yeah. So
is-
that was the infuriating
Yeah.
part that like this
So
could have
do
been
the dye
I
test.
could
It's
have
basically
known.
they shoot dye
Mhm.
in to make sure it can get all the way through. And
Right.
They can see it getting into the uterus.
And it was
So-
really painful. Like
Right.
I was in there with Dr. McMullen and she was like, this is bad. Like this is hurting. I'm sorry I'm hurting you. Like it was like really painful.
Yeah.
And it could have been avoided. Like all of that
Mhm.
other stuff could have been avoided, thinking like I wasn't good in like something was wrong with
Yes.
me.
Right.
like,
Yeah. What
right.
an
all
emotional
of
roller
this-
coaster.
Well, and we could have taken that $4,000 and
And
put it
put it
towards
right
the
towards
IVF.
IVF.
Right.
Skip because you can skip. You can go. That won't matter if you do IVF, right?
Right. Right.
So that was kind of really emotionally draining. And
So
you
I had to take a back seat because
Mhm.
I had hit a wall. But before that, Heather like one night was like, I want to carry the baby. kind of thing,
Wow.
conversation.
I don't know why.
And I
Yeah,
was like,
Heather, did that just come? Sorry, Hayley.
It did. Like it did. And then I was like, it's so expensive that you're trying to think of every reason. Like, let's just
Mhm.
do it this way. That because it's more expensive to carry her egg than just do mine. And
Right.
then I was just like laying there one night, and I was just like, like, we're gonna spend money anyway. Let's do it exactly how we want to do it.
Yeah.
Like, and
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be paying the loan off anyway, so
Right.
another couple months.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
So that kind of, both of us then felt like
we're still getting the best of kind of,
we both get to be like
both
a major
part of the process.
Right,
So like,
right.
okay, so after finding out that my fallopian tubes were blocked and that Heather wanted to do it, we called Art back and we were like, well, our friends that we know did the reciprocal IVF and that's what we want to do because everything that was going on. So then we started to do, like, we had to do another medical check to make sure everything was like all good after me kind of letting them know how I felt about the first round of medical checks.
Right.
And how that didn't go very well.
We put that in the past.
So
We are
treading
moving
carefully
forward
here.
together.
So
They're
we
really
love
amazing
them.
there. They
They're
are really amazing there. They really are.
fabulous
They know what they're
group
doing.
of people.
What would it mean to you to go into your birth with confidence, even if you've never given birth? It's not a myth. Knowledge really is power. Whether your birth ends up the picture of perfection or not, it can still be positive. Part of that is understanding all your choices along the way. Belle v. Birth and Baby can be your key to knowledge, so you can feel empowered, welcomed, supported, and guided as you prepare for your birth journey. Taught by experienced teacher, certified childbirth educator, and birth doula Sarah Landry, the Best Birth Forward Childbirth Education Series is offered in either group or private classes in a flexible hybrid of self-paced and guided learning. By providing evidence-based information, inclusive resources, practical skills, and meaningful connection, Sarah can support you for your best birth. Find information on classes and services at www.bellevbirthandbaby.ca and connect with her on Instagram and Facebook at bellevbirthandbaby.
Can you tell us explain to us and for our listeners exactly what reciprocal IVF means?
yeah.
Because I think this is incredible.
So
Like, how
science
cool
is
is
amazing.
science? Yeah, how cool is science?
Reciprocal
Amazing.
IVF is when you take the eggs of someone else and implant them into another uterus.
Right.
Amazing.
So
we used Hayley's egg and I carried it.
That is
And
so
you guys, like,
fascinating.
it was so funny throughout the process because Hayley's, at the time when she we harvested the eggs or whatever you want to call it,
Right.
she was 32. So the eggs are forever frozen
32.
at 32.
32.
Right.
32.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but I, at the time, was 37 when I was carrying. And so everywhere else besides ART and the IWK, like when I went to CBRM, they would classify it as a geriatric pregnancy.
Oh my
which-
gosh.
Right.
Can we
Which is
just-
crazy. That's
we
so
need to get rid of that
I have
word.
so
wild
so
to me.
bad.
It's
so
it
bad.
infuriates me that is the term. Like, you all know, like, language, inclusivity, like,
Oh,
it's my thing.
God.
And when
Yeah.
I hear that term, I'm like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, and with the new research coming out and stuff, it's not even accurate 100%, but you'll even laugh further, Sarah. The people at the IWK and the ones at ART, they can't classify it as a geriatric pregnancy, but because it goes by the age of the egg. And they kept saying, we don't care how old the uterus is. And I kept going, well, the uterus is not that old, so can we tone
rude.
it down a little bit?
Lay off my uterus.
They're like, yeah,
You're just like rubbing your belly, being like, you're
Oh my
fine. You're
God.
fine,
Yeah.
sweetie. We love you. You're doing great.
So Hayley, you had to go through then all the injections because you were,
Yes.
okay.
Yes. And so
you had to sync your cycles, right? Is that
right.
Oh,
Yeah.
that
So,
I can't even wrap my head around that.
Right. So we did have to sync our cycles
Mm.
and we had to it was so funny. We were taking birth control to line them up and we were both like, thought we'd never be doing this again. Like, so like, oh, man.
Amazing.
So yeah, we did that. And then,
Well, first of all, so in order to get the sperm, we had to go through all of these medical things. So there's like a couple things you need to check in order for like good compatibility in regards to like the sperm. So like blood type, CMV negative or positive, whatever your situation is individually. Blood type, a couple of other things are really important.
And is that being checked for the egg and the uterus, or just
so? It wasn't checked for the uterus, it was checked for the egg. So
Right.
I use my like blood type, but Heather and I have the same blood type.
Oh,
So like that was
wow.
cool anyway.
Yeah.
So
Right.
Gray, Heather and I, first of all, we have a son. His name's Gray, by the way. He's
Amazing.
It
Yeah.
worked out.
Yeah.
out.
Surprise. Yeah.
And we are all the same blood type, which is really cool.
Wow. That is
So,
cool.
after getting all of those parameters, the selection got our options down to like 12
It's not
out of thousands.
as many as you think when you start lining everything up.
So
Of
first of all,
donors?
yeah. So because she was going
Yeah.
to carry my egg, we picked someone that looked as much like Heather as possible.
Wow.
like similar features, like blue,
Yeah.
Blue
eyes,
eyes.
light hair,
Right.
kind of thing like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then so that narrows the field
Even more.
Right.
Plus, there's an option called open versus closed. So an
Mm.
open donor means that he's okay with being contacted by the kid after they turn 18.
Okay.
If the kid
Right.
wants to, but they can't
Right.
contact the kid.
Okay.
And that was
Okay.
really important for me because I was adopted at 6
Mm.
weeks old. And
Wow.
the way in which I got in contact with my birth mother and pending my birth father was like a lot of questions for me. So if like that was going to be a non-issue, we wanted to pay the extra money to make that.
Right.
Wow.
And then so
Right.
that narrows the
So that
field even
narrows it
more.
down even more.
And then you go through the it's so interesting. They don't give you a picture of the person now, but they give you a baby picture of
picture.
them.
Wow.
Oh wait, there was one more weird category of whether you wanted master's, PhD,
Oh, it got
or
weird. It got
Wow.
weird.
level.
You could pay more. It got really
Yeah.
that
And
got
that was
too weird
based on
for
cost,
us.
on price.
cost.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, like, what is this? Is it like a magazine? Is it
Yeah,
like
what
what are we
is
talking here?
It's
It's
on the
an
computer.
like
it was a magazine.
Like, do they send a catalog?
per
like,
month.
But
here's-
it's a digital,
three-ring
it's a digital
binder.
catalog.
Spur Monthly.
Digital.
Oh, our new copy of Spur Monthly's here. I love it. I would
what
totally
do we
love
got
it.
going on for
The
this
mail-
month?
The mailman would be giving us weird looks for sure.
Sure.
Yeah, so it's a computer. It's like a
Computer
computer
catalog.
I
Okay.
guess.
And then it has like all the
looks like a bio
parameters.
with a little
And
picture.
then yeah,
It's
you
like
get your
sperm
baby-
Instagram.
Exactly.
Okay.
And
Or
then you go-
Tinder.
Yeah.
Swipe left, swipe
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you go through and you're like, okay, blue eyes, we want that. Like, okay, height, whatever. It gets weird. You don't want to go I don't know, lots of people do it different ways, I guess. But in my experience, I didn't want to get too
emotionally attached.
like eugenicsy, like designing a baby of some sort or
Right.
something like that.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
I had in my mind that we'd get down to 5 and then randomly pick one of the hat. But when you get
Right.
down to it, we didn't even probably have 5 choices.
Wow.
Wow.
5 minimum was the maximum.
And you're so invested then.
And the finite detail that they go into. So not only do you get a report of what the clinic people thought of the person coming in
Uh-huh.
to donate the sperm, you get
Oh.
a report of their own interpretations of how they feel about themselves, plus psychological testing results of like,
And
and
an
they have to write an essay.
essay.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I kid you not, you guys, we went through like at least 2 of them like this, where it was like, yes, they have that's the feature we want. Absolutely. Everything checks off. And then you get to the essay and the guy's like, I'm pretty awesome. And I just think my seed should be spread around the world. And I'm like, nope.
Nope.
Come
Bottom
on.
of the pile. Oh yeah, you wouldn't believe it. Some of them
I'm pretty
were
much
lovely,
awesome.
but, like,
I'm pretty
some of
much
them were
awesome.
painful.
Like reading through the things, and you're like, okay, this is a dud. Let's stay away from that.
I don't
one.
know if this is from nature or nurture, but no thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Not risking that.
No.
Yeah.
Wow.
I hope this doesn't sound insensitive, but like I want to flip through this digital magazine
You
and
can-
just
you
read
can
these
go
bios.
Yeah.
No way.
You can go and look at it, but it won't show you like super
Certain
specific
stuff until you
details
Maybe
until
it-
you pay.
Entertainment of like what because what would you write if you're writing something about how you
Well,
feel
and-
about yourself? I don't know what I would write. Like, what would you write?
Right. And
Please
things
pick me.
Things of
Yeah.
the world are changing. Like there was a time
But
when
why?
you couldn't get
Yeah.
right. But why?
But why? Yeah.
Prove to me why these
Yeah.
are doing tick. And it's the world's changing too. Like there was a time and they're trying now because
this
it's
is
in
crazy.
demand, but like you couldn't get sperm from a redheaded person because
And you
it
can't
wasn't
be-
in demand. But now it's in demand.
Wow.
And you can't be shorter than 5'6".
Because
They won't
people won't buy the
accept your
sperm.
sperm.
And so it's very weird. It becomes very
What a shot to the
What's
heart
wrong
if
with
someone's like,
5'6"?
I want to help
nothing.
couples, and they
But
go
that's
in,
the
and then they're
supply
like,
and demand. If you
Oh,
can
no, honey,
choose
you're too
5'11"
short.
or 5'6", people
Yeah.
tend to
what a
choose
social
5'11".
experiment. Like
It
the
is.
social
Wow.
conditioning
Totally
of
is.
this what did that
Yeah.
what did that magazine look like 50 years ago, and what will it look like
Right.
50 years from now?
Right,
Like,
right,
what's
right,
the
right.
preferences?
Yeah, exactly. And they are
So
shifting
interesting.
very quickly in the world. So,
Yeah.
so we finally picked a sperm, and then we got good advice. Okay, so the lesbian community in Cape Breton
And
is
this
not
is-
huge. I mean,
Right.
there's
Shout out to
there's-
all the lesbians.
There's lots of us. Hey guys. We're mostly friends and we mostly play baseball together. I'm just kidding. Not really. That's a joke. I'm just kidding. Lesbians come in all shapes and sizes and do lots of different activities.
Stereotypically speaking.
But like
Heather.
we've got good advice from friends, like don't ask other people's donor number, because we have friends who have asked and they have the same donor.
So
and
they
it
call them
comes to
they
them.
call them dibblings.
Yes, and there's even like communities in Halifax that have Facebook groups
Meetups
that they
for
meet up for
dibblings.
genetic connection stuff. So we have a strict don't ask
Oh,
policy.
my
Don't
Yeah,
ask,
someone
don't tell.
asked.
I don't want to know. Exactly.
So
Gray, you
did
will
you
never-
know
you
that
will
right
never
away?
know.
Were both of you on the same page with that? You were like, we don't want to know if anyone else
Yeah.
has this.
Well, I didn't know anything about it
Well,
until a friend at
a
hockey
friend of
told
us
me,
told
and I was like,
Oh.
I didn't even think that would be possible. But when
No.
you narrow it down, the amount, like the certain sperms, like you're gonna
So
buy the same
small.
ones. And crazy enough, like you can spend, if you have like just all the money in the world and you want to do this, you can buy out a certain kind of
Yes,
sperm.
you
so
could say,
nobody
"Oh, I'm
else can
buying
have
out
Oh,
the whole
wow.
thing, so no one can get
it. Yeah,
the sperm." So like you
So-
can buy 1 vial, 2 vials, 3 vials, or you can buy them all.
you can
So
pay.
then that person can no longer be a sperm donor?
No,
They-
so they can put up a contract with the donor sperm that said that you can't accept any more donors, and that it's called it's a specific name for, like, they bought out all of the stock basically for
Wow.
that one donor type.
It
And are
gets
these-
crazy.
Are these donors that you are looking through, like geographically speaking, are they
Most likely.
provincially?
So most likely the clinic that we were working with was mostly out of
Ontario.
Canada,
Ontario.
and most of the donors were out of Ontario, but like they gave us recommendation for one out of America.
Okay.
one- like, so it's based off of your region and
But like
kind of
there's no
what you want.
local sperm bank.
Okay, that's what I
And
was wondering. Yeah.
the other discriminatory thing is, like, you can't use a friend or like
Well,
anything
You
like
can
that.
do whatever you want behind closed doors, but the clinic, won't do
accept-
it for you.
Mhm.
It's
Oh.
complicated. The reason they're doing it is not meant to be discriminatory.
No.
They're doing it because there's a lot
Legal
of legal
ramifications.
Yeah.
ramifications. Whereas
Right.
if you get it from a reputable sperm
There's
dealer,
already-
I don't even know, that
Yeah.
sounds weird. A reputable sperm place.
Clinic.
All the paperwork's been done. Nobody's gonna
Right.
come to you and say
Mm.
that's my baby, and that's
Right.
important for me.
And that fear was a fear for us, that like no one's coming and taking
Or
this
like
away
if you
from
use
us.
someone you
Right.
know, you just don't know
No.
what feelings are going to happen after. But some people
Yeah.
do go that route and it works out for them. For us,
Right.
it just
Mhm.
wasn't. And the clinic won't do it because of the biological thing. But like we just always thought that it's such a privileged place if you're talking $3,000 just for the sperm.
Right.
Like you're automatically not allowing people to access the ability to have children if they have, like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, so
Yeah.
If
Yeah,
they
that's
have
right.
that piece already. Right.
exactly.
And
exactly.
luckily in
Right.
Canada, the healthcare piece, at least the MSI piece, or like the basic kind of coverage or like assessments are covered.
A lot of
but,
things
like,
were covered under MSI.
In
Okay.
America, all of the blood work, all of that
Yeah.
stuff is nothing. None
There's a
of that's
cost for every
covered.
single
There's a
thing.
cost for every single thing.
You
So
know,
most
like-
of the medication you took was covered, right?
No,
No.
wait till we
No?
tell you about that.
So that
yeah, we'll
gets
tell you about
intense
that
for
because
them.
that was really a difficult part.
Wow.
So we got the sperm.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
got we got 3 vials.
Did you-
And we used 2 already because we
Okay.
have the insemination.
Right.
So we had
Right.
So for
one
we had
left.
to use the whole vial for each insemination. And like when I say this was like a normal size vial with a red and brown top,
like
Yeah.
6 inches,
this
say.
this much at the tiny bit of the bottom was
It's like a
filled
half
up.
inch of liquid, or not even.
Half
Not
inch.
even. Not
Wow.
even.
I'm
And
thinking
sh-
it's like a
Same, like a cup full.
a bottle of
something.
blood
No.
And
collection.
so like if it's a normal like blood collection
Vial.
tube,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good visual. The blood
very
collection.
Yeah.
bottom, the very tiny bit.
it's
at the
just the pointy
What?
part and
Yeah.
like
What?
maybe just a
And-
little bit at the top.
And I kept saying to them, "You sure there's enough?" And they're
She's like, there's 4
4.8
million
million sperm
in
here."
there. 4
What?
million sperms right there.
Yes.
That's
So
why
we-
they sell you say the pull-out method doesn't work, I guess, because it only takes like a freaking
Just one little
Doesn't
swimmer.
take
just
much.
one little dot.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
$3,000 and you don't even get a full friggin' vial.
Well,
Tell me about
so
it.
then you can get different types of sperm, which then kind of lessens your
That's
chances
right,
as
like
well. So you can have washed or
unwashed.
unwashed. And so washed sperm means that it was clean, basically. So all of the extra seminal fluid was washed out of the sample. So it's basically just the sperm in a kind of substrate, like just floating around.
Right.
And then unwashed is just all of the stuff that comes out when a man ejaculates.
Huh, I didn't even know that. Hayley did a lot of the research in the beginning, so
Okay.
some of this stuff is new to me.
So when I hear things like this, I always go back to who was the first person to discover that you could do this?
Right.
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
how
absolutely.
do you wash sperm?
It's absolutely.
Is it like the washing board? Like,
we're seeing new research out of some places like Australia and stuff where now they're fusing eggs. So
What?
you basically have
The
three
three
genetic
genetic
materials,
materials in
mine, hers,
one.
and sperm, like,
Mhm.
which is I think still experimental, but it's like
Wow,
another
that is
step.
Science is amazing.
fascinating.
It is.
Science is friggin'
Science
amazing.
is cool.
It is,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's incredible. Okay, I have a
Yeah.
question about the sperm process.
Yes.
Did you
please.
both agree on the donor? I mean, I know it was limited options. Like once you clicked off all your clicks, you got it down. Like, did it come down to like I picture like the Bachelorette of sperm. Are you like looking at the
Who
two
gets the
final
rose?
contestants and being
Who's
like,
getting the
who's the rose? I'm in love with both of them. Who do I give my rose to? Like, did you have different opinions or were you on the same page?
So basically we were on the same page because at that point, like normally I would find a bunch that I would like and then I would send it to Heather and she was like so busy and like a lot going on. She was like, I trust you.
I really did.
Yeah,
Just take
yeah,
a back
yeah.
seat.
Incredible.
I really did.
She
Yeah.
was just like, I trust
Like she
you.
does that kind of work really well. Like
Yes.
Hayley is the one, like for buying a car, she's got all the work done before we go. And so
Right.
like
Yeah.
I'm really okay with just
Her
like,
research
So she was
skills
like,
are
so just-
proven.
after
I'm
we
chilling,
had
yeah.
after we had Grace, she was like, well, what was the sperm? Like,
Yeah.
what was
I forgot.
What
She had to
was
like
going
pull
on
up.
there?
She had to like pull him up. And we were like finding out all these things for the night. Like we looked him up and we're like, oh, he's
He's
very
a musician.
musical.
He's
He
a
was
musician.
singer, 10 years in a band.
He's his
Yeah.
accountant.
So we told
Ooh.
I told Auntie Emily, Emily Digwall, we said,
Yes.
you're in charge of that.
Yeah, that's right.
Fostering
She
that.
can
'cause-
foster those
Yeah.
skills.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So yes. So basically I just went along for the ride.
Amazing.
Well, I did a lot of research. I talked to a lot of people. I contacted the clinics. I made a lot of friends with like receptionists and like, tell me when the new sperms are coming in.
Yeah.
But
Gosh.
She's on the sperm notifications. Like
They
give
see
me
a cute
advice.
person walk in the door. They're like texting Haley under the table.
Right.
Call us.
This is the kind of research she does. So.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was kind of, I don't know what the right word is, maybe overwhelmed
Yeah.
by the whole idea of all of it, that
Right.
it just was easier for me to like, and we had such wonderful friends who helped
Yeah.
us through this.
That's
Because
so helpful.
honestly, without those people going before us and like literally taking us under their wing and tell us things that I would never have thought of, like
Yeah.
I can't
Well,
think of examples now, but like
You'd
it
be,
would be so overwhelming to just
Yeah.
go it alone.
you'd be navigating the unknown. Like,
Yeah.
you were telling me a little bit about this process, and just to speak to maybe why you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed in the process is we talked about privilege of it all, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a very privileged process. A, that you're there and able to do it. We just talked
Yeah.
about that accessibility. But B, like you just mentioned,
Mhm.
the master's or PhD level are more expensive. Like you're looking through it and you're kind of feeling like,
Ugh.
how do I pick this? Because
Yeah.
you want these genes, but you also don't want to feel like
Mhm.
you're,
Mhm.
It's
it's a privilege.
that was
process.
uncomfortable. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
and it was even a privileged
Yeah.
process, even down to like the terminology that they use. Like nothing was explained in like lay terminology. Everything was medical jargon.
Right.
Everything
right.
was written in a way like at
Mhm.
least the clinic that we decided to go to, or the sperm bank that we decided to go to, was like all about LGBTQ2 plus, like all of that, like rainbows everywhere on their website. But like
Right.
a lot of the other clinics were like everything was strictly medical based, and like
Right.
if you don't know this, then you'll probably have to like Google
Mhm.
the information. And we were
Feel
coming
lost
from a
and feel
very
lost.
privileged space of like I went to nursing
Haley
school.
had a real
Yeah.
background.
Like
Yeah.
like I have a lot of siblings and they have a
Mhm.
lot of kids, and like Heather's sister was in the process of getting pregnant and having a baby at that time. So like we were like entrenched with a lot of knowledge,
Right.
which was awesome.
Yeah.
But
Right.
like, not a lot of people have that type of support system, and we were
or can walk in the bank and get the loan. Or
Right.
whatever,
Mhm.
you
Right.
know, 'cause-
Yes. Such a good point.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
yeah.
yeah.
Incredible.
And that was part of feeling the overwhelm of it all. Like
Yeah.
it has to be done that way because that's what's available and that's what's done.
Right.
And for me, it did feel like as privileged, as lucky as we are to be able to do it. Some of it felt a little icky in that
Right.
sense, like
Yeah.
too
Yeah.
controlled almost, like
Right.
even
Right.
to the point where you can spend an extra 10
Mhm.
grand and make sure it's a girl,
boy or
or make sure
girl.
it's a boy, not the
Wow.
sperm, but your embryo.
Your embryos.
Right.
So like
Wow.
Oh, really?
for me, that was like
Right.
that's just a little too much for me in the sense that
Yes.
I let's let a couple things happen as they
Yeah.
will, kind of
Mhm.
thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's
And we didn't even know what we were kind of coming into, because like we read a couple of books and like talked to friends, but like the actual emotional piece behind it, we were like, we didn't realize that we felt so yucky after reading like the descriptions of like the price tiers and like all
Right.
of this stuff.
Yeah.
right.
And yeah.
It's just and everyone who does it has to navigate that part of it.
Right.
It's part of the
Right.
what's available and what's the process. So
Mhm.
Yeah. You
so yeah.
you told us about some of the about me sections that turned you off. Can you tell us a little bit? Is there any that stick out in your mind of ones like reasons why they were doing this that were like, oh, that's really nice. Or
Yes.
that's
Yes. There was absolutely, and I want to say the one we picked, but I
Yeah.
don't remember if I'm
Yeah.
being honest with you. But there was absolutely some where they were like, I just want to help couples who need help.
Wow.
Like
And that was our
Oh.
kind of our
and
donor.
I'm sure some people just did it because you can make money.
They
from
need
it.
money,
Like,
yeah.
you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
That's okay too, whatever
Yeah.
reason you do it.
Yeah.
But there was absolutely some that were
Wholesome.
like just really just trying
Yeah.
to help people out and
Yeah.
make it available, like do this nice thing that they can do for
Right.
really easy.
Yeah. Go on, take us from there. So you had the
Okay.
vials. They're
So we
all
got the
filled.
sperm. We
little
used 2 already. Remember?
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Did
You
not
have
work
3.
because they were blocked. So we have 1 left.
Oh.
So with a regular IVF process, you take out the eggs, which we'll talk about, which was absolutely the hardest part. Like I know I did my part doing the pregnancy part, but the egg harvesting is so hard on, like it was so hard on Hayley's body. And like,
Right. Wow.
So the regular IVF, you put an egg in a petri dish, you dump the vial of sperm in, and if one makes his way in, then you did great and it's fertilized.
Even though survivor of the fittest isn't like the ideal situation, but like, yeah, that's what is happening.
It is.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And
Gotcha.
and then there's another process called ICSI, which
Is basically they take the
Yeah.
sperm and inject it directly
one
into
sperm
the egg.
and put it
So
right
they
in
take
the
the
egg.
strongest sperm and put it directly into the egg.
Okay.
So you know that the sperm's getting in.
Right.
So it's more expensive by like, I think it was $1,800 or $2,000 more. But we started thinking about it. So I guess
Intracytoplasmic sperm injection.
Okay.
So that's why I couldn't remember it.
Yeah.
And so basically, depending on how many eggs you get, and we'll talk about that, how many eggs you get, you need a vial of sperm for each egg that you want to fertilize.
If you're doing
Okay.
it the traditional method of
Right.
IVF with the egg in the petri dish. And then
Okay.
start-
Petri dish, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
With ICSI, that one vial could fertilize all of these.
4 million eggs.
Like, because it takes one sperm.
Right.
So even though it was more expensive, it ended up, when we tell you how many eggs we got and how many are fertilized, it ended up being much cheaper because we would have had to buy that
Each
many
vial.
vials.
An
Another
amount of
sperm.
vials.
Right.
Right. And I didn't know that the vials of sperm, like that was part of the process when Hayley tried before the fallopian tube issue was
Right.
resolved, and then with this process as well. So
Right.
same.
So that was our
okay.
3 vials. So
Okay.
yeah. So we had
We
lost
were down
2,
to our last.
and I kept asking them, "Are you sure that's enough? Are you sure that's enough?" And they're like, "We only need 1, and there's 4 million."
Yeah.
it's fine. I was like, "Okay." I was
Wow.
panicking. I was like trying not to
And
think of any more
the
costs.
nice thing about working with the clinic is that you get the sperm and they make sure that all of the sperm are
Like, it has good
motile and that
motility
they're
and all that
good
stuff. Yeah.
viable options. Like if we would just go to a stranger and do it that way, we wouldn't
Right.
know
Right.
or like any
Right.
of those things. So like we were buying a
so
a
reassuring.
product
Yeah.
basically.
And
Yeah.
that got sent right to them, and they did everything with
And they
it.
tested it and all
Yeah.
that.
I know
Wow.
it's like microscopes and the whole thing, but I'm just so immature of me, but I'm picturing what they're looking at being like, how do they see all those little
Right.
sperm in this pile of like goo? Like, how do they
I know.
separate?
I have a picture of it.
Show us,
Yes, I do
because
know what you mean.
my mind is, I'm such a visual learner. I'm like, how do they figure that out in there?
Yes.
And then when you were talking about the strongest sperm, a picture of like a sperm with like
Right,
your
this guy
elbows
with,
up
like,
or like muscles
doing-
kept popping
doing
in my
curls,
head. Like just
Doing curls.
Exactly.
The one doing the push-ups. Give me that one.
Yeah, exactly. They're just
one
elbowing
with the
the
swim
other
cap
sperms
on.
out of the way,
Right.
like doing laps
See that
in the
one wearing
pool.
a
I'm like,
rainbow flag? Give me that one.
Yeah. Michael Phelps of the sperm. We want him. Oh.
So I'll send you the picture, but this is an actual picture of the sperm
Wow.
being put into the egg
Wow.
Yeah.
in Heather's uterus.
That's when
Wow.
that's
Oh
when
my
they put the
gosh.
embryo in. Yeah.
Yeah.
the
That's
embryo.
incredible.
So okay, so
That's
the
great.
ICSI, I know, it's awesome.
Wow.
So the ICSI, so we knew that we were doing that. So now the next step is we gotta harvest the eggs.
Okay.
Which is
So this
I
is-
was like, oh, this is gonna be fine.
So last year in
Mm.
February, we went up to stay at my sister's house, which shout out to Sarah
Yeah.
Everhard. She just had a baby and we stayed with her because we had to be there for 3 weeks going back and
Wow.
forth.
Minimum.
And so some people like I know who are working and just couldn't, like we were lucky we saved up the time, we were able to go and everything. But I know that they go back and forth, and for coming from Cape Breton to go back and forth, sometimes you have to be there every morning, and sometimes you don't know when you have to be there because you're testing and
Wow.
they're telling you to come. So we stayed there the whole time.
Thanks, Darren Dave.
and so basically we went in for like all these orientations. So we were with other couples sometimes, like
Okay.
they do group education center on the injections and stuff like that.
And then we started seeing the same people around the clinic, like, ooh, hey girl, like
Yeah.
I know you.
We
I've seen
started
you at
knowing,
the
yeah,
clinic."
because every day we would see them because they
Yeah.
were coming back.
Right.
So how many days? So basically to get my body ready, I had to do,
Start from the very beginning.
okay, you tell me
Okay,
where that
so
is, 'cause-
The very beginning was okay. So basically, they told us in order for us to be successful, both of our wombs need to be prepared at the same time. And in order for that to happen, Heather needed to take estrace
Yes.
and birth control, and I just needed to take birth control. So Heather's needed to take the estrace in order to build the lining of her uterus
Wow.
and not have her period
Right.
to make sure that it was ready to receive
because they wanted to get
an egg.
thick.
Right?
Right.
So like,
Yes.
you know, when you go to the doctor, you're like, ooh, it's the thickness. This is awesome. The egg's going to be healthy in a good
Yes.
environment type of thing.
Yes.
And then for me, I didn't have to take anything except the birth control until the egg process.
And was the estrace not the nasal sprays?
The estrace was the little pills that
Oh,
you would
right,
have to
right.
take. And then we both had to take the nasal sprays
Ugh.
when we transitioned into like the active phase of the egg retrieval. So we
Wow.
did, so you can do a frozen retrieval or a live retrieval, fresh retrieval.
transfer, they call it.
Right.
And so, but with the nasal sprays, it was five times
a
in each
day.
nostril at 7, 11, 3, 7. 11 and 7 and 11.
What?
It was just
So we had our
so
kitchen
much
table.
nasal
I'll
sprays.
send you the picture of that too. Our kitchen table blocked off with the medications we had to take at the times we had to take them. And each separated on each side of the table of like, that's Heather's meds and these are my meds.
I hope you're putting these pictures in
Wow.
Gray's baby book.
Yes. And so like when they harvest the eggs, they stimulate your body to release a lot of eggs at once.
Right.
So
And s-
normally in a normal cycle for a female, you could potentially release up to anywhere between like 1 and 5 eggs or something like in that normal range. Like you had twins, so you released potentially 2 eggs
At
because
least.
they were
Yeah.
fraternal
Hyperovulation.
twins.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like they did that on basically on
Which happens when
steroids.
you're aging. I was told that. Thank
That's
you.
so messed up.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
So Heather was on the estrace and the nasal spray to kind of jumpstart her body getting ready, but without ovulating. So like if she ovulated, that would have been a bad thing. We did not
Oh,
want
That's what the
her
birth
okay.
to
control and stuff
ovulate
was for.
at all.
I couldn't. Yeah.
Do not
Right.
ovulate. That's what we do not want for her.
Right.
And so I was continuing to take the birth control as well. So I wasn't ovulating either. So we did a fresh transfer. So that means they did not freeze my eggs when they made them into embryos.
Right.
Normally, if they were going to put the eggs back into me, they would have to freeze them after
Wait till next month.
hyperstimulating my
Right.
ovaries to produce more eggs. So
Right.
that would be unsafe environment for the eggs to go back into
And
my body.
Some people
Wow.
can do the
Hyperstimulation.
and still do a fresh transfer. But if you get a certain amount of eggs or a certain amount, like they won't do it. They'll just
Right.
freeze them for a month and then do it next month, and that's more ideal.
So you go
Right.
through your normal cycle again, and then they
Right.
they implant the egg.
Yeah.
Yes.
2 quick comments, not to
Yep.
interrupt. One is you must have had to do so much self-education because
my
they
gosh.
definitely do not
Well-
teach us about this in sexual
Oh my
education
gosh,
class in
absolutely.
school. So like what you're telling me, I'm like, oh my gosh, what? There's so much you had to learn.
Well,
And
the other
2,
part is
Yeah.
yeah.
also with that is that we were lesbians, and they were like, well, like the same-sex couples do a lot of research, and like they left the ball in our court to like ask the
'Cause they're so
questions
used
because
to
they're so used to people coming in
Right.
with like,
Right.
these are my questions, this is everything that I learned on the internet and
Right.
through my friends, and
Yeah. And not
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
lesbians do more
No,
upfront
no.
research.
Just
It's just
because-
the nature of we
Understanding.
have all these
Right.
pieces that are missing, so we have,
You have to learn.
Exactly.
You have to fill in the
Right.
blanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's lots of hetero couples that also go to the clinic knowing a ton, but they just said that their experience was that they've been
Yes,
noticing
of
that kind of
course.
trend in that.
Yeah.
I
The
mean, it
second,
does make sense.
you haven't highlighted the point yet that you were like essentially syncing up your cycles, right?
Yeah.
So you have 2
Well,
women
so-
living in the same place with these synced cycles. Like, well, how is that climate for those
Yeah.
few weeks?
So it was hysterical because at the clinic we were like, both of us haven't been on birth control. We've been together for 8 years. So like there was no point.
Right.
And
Right.
I had to get a kick out of it was a lovely nurse at the perinatal clinic after we had Gray and we
Yeah.
wanted to check on him. And she was just going through a checklist.
Yeah.
And she said, like, what are you doing for birth control? And Hayley and I both laughed and was like, well, if somebody gets pregnant, there's going to be a lot of explaining to do. And she was so embarrassed. She was laughing. So
Bigger
hard.
issues
We just
here.
thought it was the funniest thing. She's like, I'm so sorry. I'm just on autopilot. Like, I can't believe I just asked that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But
yeah.
go through that checklist, right?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
the list needs to be updated.
But she
or
was
there needs
We
to be
had a
two,
great
right?
laugh. We had a
Yes,
great laugh. She
yes,
was
of
so
course.
funny, so.
And we had a lot of laughs, like, look at my birth control. Like we were laughing really hard. That,
Yeah.
like, hey, we're back here again.
Yeah, high
Right.
school.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had to sync up, and then Hayley had to get the stimulator up. Like, so you can keep going with the medication thing. 'cause you're
Right,
better at that
yes.
than I am.
So the medication process, so we were both on the birth control, and then we were both on the S-trace, and then we were both on the nasal spray.
Yeah.
And then Heather had to continue taking the S-trace and the nasal spray. So S-trace is a synthetic estrogen
Yeah.
that keeps your body from doing the normal process of ovulating. So you're kind of tricking your body to like the birth control pill, like you
Right.
keep
Right.
taking it, you're not going to get your period.
Right.
Yes.
But this was
Right.
more intense because it was building up the lining in the uterus to make
Right.
sure that it was like that good environment. And so that with the nasal spray was creating that environment that we needed for the fresh transfer. And then so we went to the clinic, we did all of the stuff that we needed to do. Like, I can't imagine doing all of this and then not taking the medication or like any of those things. Like, I can't think about the emotional barriers that happen for some people that are like, I just can't fucking do this anymore.
Or scared.
Right.
Or scared of
Yes.
needles, or
any
like,
of
you know,
those
so
Right.
like
things.
that's
Yeah.
intense in itself, because like you don't realize how much you're actually putting in your body and how much you're doing. So
yeah.
and then I had to start injections. So we went for 17 days, I think.
Yeah.
Wow.
So basically, the pharmacist was an amazing person.
We love
Like,
you, Al.
Al. We love you so much. Like, he made it worth it. Like, he was just
Aw.
amazing. And so we have an incredible drug plan through Escazoni. Like, incredible. Almost everything I get is 100% covered.
Amazing.
Fertility drugs are covered $2,400 per person per lifetime. So
Okay.
that's not even in the vicinity
total?
of what it costs per person per lifetime. So now that I've the Hayley has used.
Now that I've used all
hers,
mine, I
like
can
hers
never.
are-
I will
Right.
always have to pay out of pocket for those.
That's what
things.
happened to my cousin
So
too,
to
because she
put-
just had another baby through IVF, and she hit that roadblock of like,
Now everything's out of pocket.
So think about it like this. We were
Mhm.
going in, and when you get to a certain point, you go in every single day and you get blood work and you get an ultrasound, and they look at how big the eggs are. We want to get to 17 millimeters, I believe.
Yep.
So every day we're going in and we're getting, and every day you got to buy new medication if today's not the day. So our medication ran
Okay.
out after like a week or two.
Right.
So to put some context in this, we started on February 13th was the first day of the injections, and we didn't end up finishing our last dose until February 25th.
Wow.
So when our coverage ran out after about a week and a half, it started being $700 a day. So every single day we were driving in, and I was in the car being like,
17 millimeters.
please let
17
me leave
millimeters.
today.
Oh my
I'd be
God.
like, not today.
please.
And I'd be like, here's my credit card.
Yeah.
Like,
oh,
and so it got very
God.
stressed. That part was very stressful for me every day
Of
because I kept like
course.
looking at my limit and being like, do I need to up my limit? Because like we
Right.
used the loan for everything, and that wasn't really
Yeah.
so. That and the guy at the pharmacy was amazing, even to the point that he
He was like, don't
he
throw out,
brought all
don't
the
throw out your
little
syringes.
with like drops in them left, and
Yeah.
he pulled them out and put them together to give us like one more
Oh my
dose. He's incredible.
gosh.
And like I was sitting there,
Good
there was
people,
I
right?
was sitting there waiting for medication one day,
And the
and
couple in
one of
front
the
of us?
couples, I mean, I hope it worked out for them. I truly don't know if it was that, but they didn't need any more medication, so they had more than they needed.
I almost went and
And
got it out of
he-
the garbage.
No, he gave it back to the pharmacist. The pharmacist's like, are you sure you don't want to like, and he's like, what am I gonna do with it? And he's like, yeah, I guess you're right. And I'm sitting there like being like, I'll give you $50 for it, save me $700. And the pharmacist, once he gets it back, he's like, I obviously can't do
legally
that. I don't know
Yes.
what happened to it when it was
distribute it.
off the city.
Yeah.
And I get all that. But
Right.
I was like so tempted to be like so weird and just like chase him out and be like, can I have it?
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
Because it's the same stuff. So
What
So
an
we-
added stressor in an
Oh.
already like emotional roller coaster
Right.
jam-packed process.
right. And so Hayley kept it was so crazy, you guys. It looked like little tadpoles outside
So
her
first of
body.
all,
like you could
we-
see the eggs.
Worked
Wow.
our asses off to lose a bunch of weight.
Yeah.
To
They
meet
told us it would be easier
easier
to get
if you
pregnant
lose
if
a bunch of weight.
Yeah.
Right.
So like I was like pretty skinny at the time, and like by the last of the 17 days, you could see the eggs on the outside of my body. Like I felt like a
Wow.
frog with like
She
the
couldn't sit down.
I
she
couldn't sit
lay
down. I couldn't
like,
lay down to
nothing
go to
was
sleep.
comfortable.
Like
It
I
was
couldn't do anything.
Just
I was
painful.
crying.
just painful.
Yes, and you could feel like
Pressure.
throbbing like on the outside of your body. Like you could just
Like
see-
pulsing.
It was definitely the worst part for
Yeah.
her was like during that
It's-
time.
wow.
It was
And
horrible.
so like
So we went in and they were like we see about like 20 follicles in here. We're going in
that's a
every
good
day.
number.
They're like 20 is a great number. Let's keep them growing. Take the medication. So like do that for 17 days. They're just getting bigger and bigger
Right.
and bigger and bigger.
Because they
And
want
so-
each one of those to be 17.
the
Well, we had
average,
average.
Okay.
about
to meet
17 millimeters. So
17
some could be
Okay.
smaller, some could be bigger, but the
Okay.
average they want to get to there. And the day that they said this, I was like so happy. Like, oh thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Well, then they had to do like they had to do a vaginal ultrasound every time to measure them, and like that was
Right.
starting to get
Very
like,
uncomfortable.
Yeah,
It's
it's so
I
uncomfortable.
was like,
yeah.
this is day 3. How many more days are we going to do this?
Yeah.
Like, this is like,
So
there's not even
intrusive.
anything like
Mm.
baby
Yeah.
in there, and this
Yeah.
is like a lot. Like,
Yeah, it is.
And so we got to 17 millimeters, and they were like, okay, we're going to do the trigger shot. So like they told us about the trigger shot. This is what you do. You take it 24 hours before they're going to do the actual retrieval of all the eggs,
Wow.
because it like basically, I
Gets
guess
them
in a better
drops.
word, makes
Mm.
them drop, basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So you get the trigger shot, and then they book you to go into their OR to retrieve all of the eggs.
Which I'm telling this part.
So we get the call
Yeah.
that woohoo, we reached the average of 17 millimeters. We go into the clinic, we meet the nurse,
Yeah.
we get in the gown. Like Heather
Hayley
has to
did.
get Heather had
Well,
to
I
get in the
had to
surgery
put
gown.
on my
I
gear
had to
'cause I
get
was
in
going
my
in the room.
surgery.
Right.
Anyway, so we get in all of our gear, and then before we get in there, The doctor is amazing. They have the lab. They have the embryologist who's like fabulous. No, I'm telling the beginning part. You can tell the after part.
Like that?
I know. I just thought the same thing, Sarah.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah, she's amazing. She graduated from Dow and now she's working with them and she's like a genius also. Anyway, so we met with those two right before we're about to do this retrieval. And the physician was like, so like, how many eggs do you think there are?
She said like just take a guess because who knows? And I said 17.
The doctor said like 23 or 20 something. The embryologist was like, maybe like 17, 18 or whatever. And I said 43.
Which everyone laughed hysterically at.
The overachiever.
Come on now.
Yeah.
So then Heather can tell us the rest of it.
Manage expectations.
So they get her all doped up. And so we're in a small room and the nurse was a woman, the doctor was a woman, and
embryologist was a woman.
The lab, is that the lab?
Embryologist,
yeah. So the lab is attached to the same room with the door open.
With a TV.
And I can watch on the TV
them.
So the doctor's pulling out vials of the eggs and passing it to the end. So the embryologist calls out to you at her count as she's going.
Okay.
6,
1,
8,
10.
Okay.
She's calling back.
Is she like at the end of the bed, like pulling them out?
Like the next
in the
room, but
room,
it's
like
an
there's
open
a
door,
window
like,
and a
those
door,
okay.
and there's like a room.
Doors.
But we can watch, like I'm watching it droopy on the television.
Hayley says, I feel so happy to be blessed by all these strong women in the room. And like she was so high and she was just like, I feel like we all made it, you guys. Like we all made it. It was so funny.
You're all doing great work.
So they're calling it back and they're calling it back. And so this is the part where it's really exciting and it's like kind of unheard of and all of those things.
Right.
But it's also the part where you tread lightly.
Terrified.
Some people go through this process.
Right.
Well, how many are you going to get? Are they going to be good quality? And some people go through the process and get no eggs.
No.
Right.
We have friends, and I can't imagine that feeling because it's so emotionally and physically draining to go through that.
And financially draining.
Know people who just who have had that process. So like this is not meant to, but this is just our journey.
And what a journey it has been so far. We are so grateful to Heather and Hayley for sharing this story with us. We have learned and are learning so much. We look forward to part 2. We know all of you will as well. So make sure you tune in next week for part 2 of Heather and Hayley's story, where they continue to take us through their journey with reciprocal IVF. They'll pick up where they left off with the egg retrieval and share with us the outcome of that process, as well as what happened next, what the next steps looked like for them. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for joining us at the table for this meeting. We are so glad you joined us like always.
If this episode was interesting, if you enjoyed it, please subscribe to our podcast, throw us a review, give us a like, visit us on social media. You can find us on Instagram at The Morning Meeting, and you can send us an email to themorningmeetingpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for sitting around our table today. We are so glad you were here with us, and we hope to see you again soon.